All right, We Want Winners is back after the 49ers lose a very, at least offensively entertaining game to the Detroit Lions, one in which they were kind of, I wouldn't say they were in control, but they just had the ball. And when in this game, if you had the ball, then you were probably going to have a good opportunity to be in the lead. And then a couple of interceptions, some Jake Moody missed field goals, and they just couldn't stop Detroit, and Detroit wins. Niners score late to make it close, but 40-34 to end the Monday night game. Rod, what is your initial takeaway about this one?
I mean, it was a good. They performed better than I expected. They could have easily got boat raced, but the offense looked great early on. Brock was looking good until he wasn't. It was good. It was good though. I was pleasantly surprised. Our fans are just so frustrating. To listen to them talk about who should be fired, and it was like especially Swords in the day when it was obvious that all of our they were all blown assignments. I didn't see anything that, again, it's hard to see on TV the whole structure, but every big play, it was obvious. Two guys going with one guy and one guy being wide open. Ronaldo Green deciding that, in the red zone, we're just going to give Amon St. Brown, we're going to be 5 yards into the end zone and just give him cushion to come up and just come across the front of us and not even challenge. I mean, I'm sure that wasn't the defensive call, was to give him, a 10-yard cushion and allow that play to be made. So again, it's just the theme of the season is we're not executing at a high level. Then when you got guys out there who, you need a scorecard. There's at one point, who was the guy the left tackle who did something dumb?
There were
It's like,
two.
I don't even know.
There were
I
two
don't even
left
know
tackles.
who this guy is. So I'd heard of Heck before, but the
Meadows
other
and
guy,
Heck.
yeah. And then, at some point there was a Pleasant guy out there that I don't even know who that is, but it's kind of par for the course. They did not mail it in and quit, which was good to see. You hear all the tank talk and.
No, you're right. It is Austin Pleasance. I was thinking of the baseball player Austin Meadows.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was good to see them. I know the players and the coaches don't think about draft picks or position. They are going out there to win the game, and rightfully so. So yeah, I was disappointed at the end because it felt like maybe they had a chance to win, but yeah, it was a good showing
I
though.
think if we, I'd be interested in hearing Shanahan talk about the two interceptions, because on one end, I thought Brock Purdy, the Pretty Ricky, was cooking.
Mm-hmm.
Like they hadn't utilized him this often in a single game all year long, and this comes on the heels of him can't even line up right the week
Yeah,
before and get
exactly.
yelled at, and he's wide open on some of these routes. So they were doing lots of stuff to get him going. But then the two interceptions are both on plays for him, and I would like to know, and I really would like to know if Shanahan was being honest, because I'm sure he's going to blame both of these throws on Brock. But it looked like on the first throw where Brock overthrew him, it looked like Ricky may have cut the route off a little early, and they're just not in sync on that play. The second one I couldn't tell, because the second one he may have just keyed on him, because the safety who had both interceptions like really jumped the route.
It kind of was like he jumped that one.
Yeah, to take
So
that
like
one.
you say, it doesn't. It's hard to tell from the TV angle if Brock just didn't look him off at all and was just laser focused on Ricky, allowed him to just jump in front of it. So that was hard to tell from the TV angle. But that first one, you could have been right, because it that would explain, because to the naked eye, just like you airmailed him. But if Ricky didn't run the right route, then that is not Brock's fault,
Yeah,
obviously.
I'll be interested. And look, it could still be Brock's fault in that Ricky's supposed to cut that route off early if he gets kind of bumped or something. And this is just their first year working
Mhm.
together, so that will get better. But yeah, it seemed like there was a clear idea to get Ricky going, which was great. But it almost came at the expense of Debo, I thought. Like, Debo
Mhm.
got the ball early and then almost never again. Like, just did what I was almost wondering, like, if he was in the game.
Mhm. He
Uh,
got one target.
so it was like a Kittle and a Ricky Pearsall game for the most part. And Jennings got caught a couple passes once Josh Dobbs came into the game late. But otherwise, like, if you were to say for 3/4 of the game, man, that was a pretty good competitive football game against a really good team. But football is 4 quarters, and it kind of reminds me of the Warriors. And this is back in the day Warriors, where they'd be the scrappy competitive team, until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and then they just get blown out of the water because they don't have the same sets and they can't run the same things like some of the better teams are. And that was what the 49ers looked like to me when Detroit needed a first down. They had the right play call, they had guys open in space, they had the Niners running into each other. And on the flip side, even though Detroit's defense is just as mangled as the Niners defense is at this point, when it was third and clutch for the Niners, it seemed like Detroit had a better idea of what the Niners were going to do than the Niners had idea of what Detroit was going to do.
Absolutely, it was. I don't know. They have just they've been giving up points by the bushel here the last 3 weeks, but they are down to like second and third string, and still, even with all of that, they have managed in the clutch in these last 3 games to make plays when it counted.
Mhm.
So the backup, the second, third, and fourth string guys, they're in the same situation we're in. But the difference is when they've had to make plays, those guys have made plays. That guy, Robinson, all the talk was that he decided to sign there instead of here. There was a play versus Jennings where he stepped up on third down and shut it down. It's just those guys are executing when it matters most, and we continue not to execute, all throughout the game, but especially when we need somebody to really step up and make a play. Unless your name is Nick Bosa.
Yeah, just to get this out of the way, the word out of the end of the game, Brock Purdy got sacked. He also got face masked at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, and he had to come out of the game. It looked like it was like a hand injury, but it sounds like it's an elbow injury. And the worry is that it's the same elbow he had surgery on a couple of years ago. So he said, he tried and he could not throw. So hopefully it's not as serious as that was, because that was really serious. But yeah, that's not great news going into the last game of the season for this guy to hurt his elbow.
Now, I am not fact checking. I saw a little blurb as we were starting saying that Brandon Allen was going to play the final game. So I don't know if that's true or speculation, because I didn't even see the source. I just saw um, something on Facebook. So that could be completely erroneous, but I would imagine that, if it's anything with the elbow, that would not be, it would not surprise me if if they just shut him down at this point. I mean, what's the point of risking it at all at this point.
We had a running joke on Twitter going on with me and some 49er friends, and Brock is cooking early in the game. He's got a couple TD passes, and we're like, all right, it's back up to 60. And then he threw the first pick. And we were like, oh, down to 55. And they threw that second pick. And we're like, oh, down to 50. That's where we're at with Brock is 50. The other thing, I think this one's going to be easy for fans to get upset at because no one has any emotional ties to this dude. But Jake Moody, man, like this is funny because you and I have been talking about the game that we went to in Chicago where, they have Moody set up for a nice little chippy. And Kyle's like, nope, taking him out, bring the offense back in, and we're going to go for it on fourth down. We're like, man, that he was so mean to poor Jake. So Jake misses a 51-yarder at the end of the second quarter, right about as they're going to go into overtime. It would have given the Niners an 11-point lead, and then he misses again. But Kyle puts him out there for a 58-yarder. This dude couldn't make a 51-yarder. He puts him out there again for a 58-yarder, almost as if to say, like, okay, if you make this one, I'll forgive you for the last one. He's like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm missing this one too. Misses it again. And then when the Niners score, and there's like 40 seconds left in the game, Jake's got to kick an onside kick. And the way that he kicked this onside kick, it was almost like as he kicked it, he was like saying "fuck Kyle" under his breath or something, because he kicks this thing straight out of bounds. Like there had no chance at all to do anything with this onside kick.
The question is, do they cut him this week, or does Kyle just punish him, keep him, and just trot him out there at every opportunity next week? Because that 58-yarder, that felt like just a straight up Grant Cohn troll. It was yeah. I think he is so done with that dude. So I don't see any. That's gonna be a real big storyline in the offseason. Is
Kyle said, somebody asked him in the post game, and they said, you gave him kind of the big confidence boost last week. Are you still evaluating? And he's like, we're evaluating all positions, but he kind of said, yeah, we're already evaluating. The irony of this is, because Moody's been so bad in these games and they're losing these close games, he's kind of helping them get a higher draft pick at the same time, and then they're going to probably be done with him. But there's just no way. I don't think he can go into the season. I mean, even last year he had a halfway decent rookie season, but even last year fans were already done with him, and they were just like, we need to find somebody better.
Well, I had a post on Facebook a month ago that asked the question, so who's coming in to compete with Moody this offseason? Because I thought then there was no way they could pencil him in as K1, but now it's possible that he's just not here at all. I think it wouldn't shock me if there's definitely an open competition for kicker, and I don't know. It wouldn't shock me if he's not even a part of that competition here at this point. So yeah, that's gonna be very interesting. As interesting as a kicker storyline can be, it is the fact that they spent a 3rd round draft pick on him makes it sort of interesting. More interesting than it would be if he was a street free agent that they signed. So yeah, that's going to be it. And next week is going to be, drama. Well, there's nothing left now at this point other than draft position. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see anytime they're in field goal range. If he's still on the team, do we just go for it every 4th down, or if he trots him out there?
And what is up with his kickoffs? Every kickoff is like to the 6-yard line now.
Yeah, he is. I mean, being a golfer, he is definitely all in his head. He's got the yips for sure. So yeah, this is it's kind of hard to watch, but I don't really like that dude. So
yeah, it's I mean, it is probably better for his own process that he does not show any expression, make or miss. But when he misses, his expression just kills me. It's just like I have no sympathy for you. Like
It's like
just I don't
it's
feel
like
bad
you
for you.
know, it's like and like you say, I understand. I guess from a psychological standpoint, I can understand not too high, not too low, but it's with him, it's like nothing. And then it was that thing, what really turned me off last year is that whole thing is like after he'd miss, he wouldn't talk. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
get out of here.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
but
somebody had tweeted me because I was making moody jokes all night. My best one was, "Are we sure he's kicking with the right foot?" But somebody had said, is like he was so money at Michigan. It's like so surprising to people who watched him in college how poorly he's translated to the NFL.
yeah.
All right, let's look at some of the other stuff going on in this game. So, like I said, the Niners were out up big early on. And then in the third quarter, Detroit kind of put a move on and they outscored the Niners 18-7 in the third quarter. Niners were still in it though. They were still hanging in there. Um, there's a Jameer Gibbs run on the last drive where I don't, I will never say the Niners defense gave up or anything, but they just looked exhausted on this play. Hufanga, there was a couple times where Hufanga looked like he had an okay angle, but the speed was just too much and took a bad angle. And he was kind of the last man to touch Gibbs on a couple of different plays. And I was thinking about his future. I was like, I like him, but if you think about how the Niners match up against teams in the NFC like this, and I always go back to the 1993 49ers after Emmitt Smith is just catching balls out of the backfield left and right. And the Niners were like, nope, Romanowski, too slow. We got to bring in some faster linebackers because Emmitt is killing us.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about it the same way, with Hufanga. Like, can you bring him back knowing that the best teams that the Niners will have to overcome are probably just too fast for him?
I don't know if you bring him back, but I am not necessarily willing to just turn the keys over to Brown and Mustafa. I mean, I think you need some sort of vet in the mix. I don't know. I don't know what the market is going to be for Hufanga. And so, like you say, with his limitations, I don't even know if he would be the vet that they would consider. But I would hope that that there's somebody in the mix that when things or if things get wonky with two of the young guys, and that gets tricky because they need to play. If they're going to get better, they need to play. But if it's going to all depend, and we're going to spend a lot of the offseason, I think, talking about that, is where, because I believe, and I think we touched on it last week, I think you can make the case that this is still a real good football team. If BA comes back, if Christian comes back, they make a few tweaks on the offensive line and the defensive line, presto changeo. This, Dre comes back, which we saw this season in that one game that that we played the majority, a lot of snaps. Him back in there makes it. And is he coming back? But with him in there, that defense looked a whole lot different. You weren't relying on those guys up front, and you could see the vision that they had. Those guys up front all of a sudden didn't have to make plays. All they had to do was occupy blockers and close down gaps and let Fred and Dre, have them clean running to the ball. The run defense especially looked completely different. So like I say, you could trick yourself into believing that, with a few tweaks, we're right back there. I'm not sure that I look at it like that. I think I would want to get as young as we can and just I'm tired of the cycle of bringing in replacement level vets on minimum contracts. I just as soon have replacement level rookies on 4-year contracts.
Yeah.
And hopefully one or two of those guys pop and they're more than just replacement level players. But that is more palatable to me. If we're going to have replacement level players, let those dudes be young dudes, not old dudes. So, it's going to be interesting to see. And because, with rookies and young dudes, that they're going to be mistakes that guys like Collins and Elliott aren't going to make. But those guys, they have potential. We know what Elliott and Collins and Floyd are. They're not going, which is what was frustrating to me about the fan reaction, that they thought those dudes were kind of going to come in here and be in this system, and all of a sudden they were going to be something other than what the 8 years or 7-8 years in the league has showed us they were, which was foolhardy at best. At that point in those guys' careers, they are who they are. And, at least rookies, maybe they end up being worse than what we think they are, Spencer Burford. But at least there is an upside to a first and second year player. Like it was ridiculous 2 weeks ago, people shitting on Pretty Ricky. I mean, all that he's been through this year, and he's a rookie with no real training camp. So it's frustrating how our microwave society it's across the league. It's not just his fan base are making decisions on guys who've played 17 games. It's just it's nonsensical. And we saw today, much to my chagrin, who's holding a Pretty Ricky under 50 targets ticket, that all of a sudden we go from now next week. If they do this again next week, my bet is in danger. I'm really considering cashing that thing out and just taking what I can get. I'm already up, like it's like, I don't know, it's some good amount of money that I made 3-1 already. And I'm thinking about just cashing out, because if they do this again, it's going to be real tight, because we came in today with 29. He got 10. So now we're sitting at 39. Yeah, 50 is in reach from him. And he was great today, by the way.
So one thing I just thought about, which could be the most dramatic thing since maybe the Joe versus Steve days. What if Brock's injury affects his contract negotiation?
Well, Parag is definitely going to try to make it do that. And then, the thing is if he's injured, okay. I don't know, because, the test case, because I argue with fans all the time. All these contracts, you want to talk about deserve and worth and all that. This is like real estate. It's the comps. And the comps will tell you what's going to happen. And if he's injured, McDaniel and them, they stepped up and they paid Tua even with the contract, even with the injuries. Now, it wasn't at the top of the market, but I don't think he was a top of the market player to begin with. But to guarantee him $150 million, when he's literally one hit away, was a big risk. But like I say all the time, what the fans don't understand is this is a relationship business, and he is beloved in that building. And for you, they were in a situation where they could have slow played him and made a case for it. Unless it is that same elbow and is a similar injury, Brock has done everything he's been asked for here. And if you don't do right by him, it sends a horrible message around the league, in your locker room. with other agents, that this is not a place that you want to be. I said the same thing about Kyle. If in 8 seasons, 4 NFC championships and 2 Super Bowls get you fired on the heels of Jim Harbaugh getting fired, who is the top flight candidate that's going to come in here and take this job? Is a Ben Johnson going to really consider coming here when he's got other options? I don't think so. You're going to be in retread city because they're only
Jimmy T will be back.
Yeah, there's only 32 of these, as for coaches, there's only 32 of these jobs, and for quarterback, yeah, you could sign, Kirk Cousins or Jimmy G and play that game if you want. But I think as much as I have had issues with where the fans have anointed Brock, the facts are, at worst, he is between 13 in the list of quarterbacks. You don't just find above average quarterbacks. You're not just going to move off of Brock and just go pick another one off the tree. It's foolish to think that you would. And I keep reminding people, the Raiders, the Saints, the Giants, the Jets, Tennessee would jump at the chance to give Brock Purdy $200 million guaranteed if they were given the opportunity. It's just these guys at that level that he's playing at, and he's shown that he could play at. Then you add on the leadership and the resilience. I just don't. I think they would be foolish to fool them, to play around with this.
I'll give you the top contract QB numbers. This comes from Over the Cap. We'll just go with average per year because there's a bunch of different values. You have your total value, you got your total guaranteed, your fully guaranteed. So I'm just going to go with what they have listed for the average per year. Dak is at the top. He's at 60. Joe Burrow's at 55. Jordan Love is at 55. Trevor Lawrence is at 55. Tua, you just mentioned, at 53. Jared Goff is at 53. Man, Jared Goff, he's not going to be up until 29 when he can void the contract. But if he was up today, I think he would be breaking into that top spot. Justin Herbert, 52. Lamar Jackson, 52. Jalen Hurts, 51. Kyler Murray, 46. Deshaun Watson, 46. Kirk Cousins, 45. Patrick Mahomes, 45, and he has the lowest of the fully guaranteed contracts of the top guys. Josh Allen, 43. Matt Stafford, 40, and then there's that's kind of where the break is. So, out of all of those players, if you put Brock Purdy into the top 10, he's right at the low 50s. He probably does fit somewhere near a Jalen Hurts type of player. I think I'd rather have him than have Tua or Trevor Lawrence. You probably want.
I know his agent is gonna if I'm his agent, I slide that Trevor Lawrence contract across the desk and say, this is the floor. Yeah. I'm not you, Brock. You cannot make the case. You can't make the case that Trevor Lawrence should make more money than Brock Purdy. You just can't. You can't. That would be my position. And then I would make the 49ers. They'd have to argue me off of that. But I just don't see it. I don't see him in the Kyler Murray. You hear people talking about $40 million. That's Daniel Jones money. Are you crazy?
Aaron Rodgers, 37.5. Derek Carr, 37.5.
Those, like I say, I think that it's ludicrous to even put him in the Kyler Murray range. Honestly, that doesn't even make any sense. 46? No way. And again, that is that number, which we all know the number is the guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm.
Is really, because like you look at what Patrick Mahomes is, and AAV is, but his guaranteed money was astronomical when he signed that contract. And basically they're just doing that, the cap jujitsu
Mm-hmm.
with his number. They just, which again, like people say, Brock's not worth $65 million. Tell me, of those dudes that are up in that top echelon, wake me up when a $65 million cap hit actually happens, because it doesn't. What ends up happening is they convert a bunch of that to bonus, they give them cash, and what the number hits is never what that big number is, and you just keep pushing that number way off into the distance, into salary cap nirvana, because the NFL, who there, I guess COVID or something could happen, but that cap number, there's no reason to think that the cap is ever gonna stop going up, because NFL, they are, as we can see, they are very, very swift in coming up with ways to monetize their product and just create cap space out of nowhere. Like Netflix shows up and we'll take those Christmas Day games for $600 million. Sure. And I noticed this weekend they had a whole suite of games on a Saturday, all of them on the NFL Network. So guess what? That's inventory that's available to be purchased. If that, so that's an advertisement. That's what I saw. I saw an advertisement. You too could have this suite of games, if you want to get into the NFL business.
It's interesting. Yeah, no, for sure. But what's interesting about, you were talking about how these quarterbacks are just not available. There's nobody who's even up who can even get out of their deal until 2027. Like, I mean, if you want a Gardner Minshew, he could get out of his contract in 2026. If you want a Geno Smith, he's a free agent in 2026 at the age of 35, 36 years old. But none of these top guys, like the earliest one of these bigger guys can get out is Matt Stafford in 27, but by then he's going to be in his late 30s. There's Lamar Jackson in 28. He can void his contract, and he'll still be a young man. Jalen Hurts can void his contract in 29. He'll still be a young man.
But in reality, those guys never see free agency, and that's why people scoff at Dak's contract and number. Well, that happened. If you know why that happened, is because Jerry Jones shuffled his feet and franchised him twice, and he was a free agent, an unrestricted free agent, which never happens. And if he hits the open market, you can't tell me the Giants, the Jets, the Saints, the Raiders wouldn't have been more than willing to go over the top or whatever. It just doesn't happen that a guy that young hits the open market. That's the Kirk Cousins phenomenon. You franchise those dudes twice, and then a guy even at that level of a Kirk Cousins, you just don't get a shot at those guys in the open market. And you're kidding yourself if you think there would be nobody would want. Hell, Kirk Cousins was damn near 40, coming off an Achilles. Well, I think he's 35 or 36, but coming off an Achilles and got 100 and damn near $200 million. So, and like you say, Geno Smith will probably get a really good deal because he's playing really well.
Your shots are somebody who wants to take a shot with JJ McCarthy because Sam Darnold is cooking. Somebody who thinks, we can fix Bryce Young. Like we know how to fix him. We can fix Zach Wilson. We know how to fix him. Those are going to be the ones that you have the opportunity. There may be a Baker Mayfield, right? Who's balling and finds his way out because teams decide that, the grass is greener on the other side and we don't want to deal with him. So
there might be a brain trust that says, you know what? We want to be in the McCorkle Jones business. Maybe not. But yeah, people are talking about Sam Darnold. There's no way he's going to get an extension. And because JJ McCarthy is 21 years old. So why would they, he would have to show something really big for them. They're in a catbird seat. They could extend Darnold.
Yep.
And if JJ McCarthy beats him out, then they're in a position where they could potentially trade Darnold. I mean, because it's not going to be, the Darnold deal is going to be the comp for the Darnold deal is Baker Mayfield.
Mm-hmm.
And, which looks like a steal to get him at 60 million guaranteed at this point. His next contract is going to be huge. He's going to, it'll dwarf what because it's the same thing that happened with Geno, is that he got the what I guess we call in the NBA the fun what is that the Windhorse calls the fun extension, that one before after your rookie contract that's in between the big extension, that is what
the upcoming Kuminga deal.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think, I don't know, that's going to be interesting. That's death lineup talk. But they're going to sign Darnold. But if JJ McCarthy just Bo Nix it or Michael Penix is it, then they're in the catbird seat to flip Sam Darnold because I mean he still does Darnold things, but and it has to be the right situation.
He also makes crazy throws that maybe Justin Jefferson and one or two other receivers could actually make plays on, but
the thing that we
crazy arm.
Yeah, but the thing we saw in training camp the year he was here is that the talent is undeniable.
Yeah.
He is really, really athletic, and the ball just jumps out of his hand.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty crazy difference on the velocity of the Josh Dobbs fastball compared to what we see from Brock.
Yeah. So I mean, you got talented guys out there, but but none of those guys are able to put it together in a string of games like Brock Purdy has. I mean, and again, today was one of those things where there are times, and there were times in that game that we were at, that you see the limitations of his physical ability. I mean, there's just no question he's not a top tier thrower of the ball. And is, as we talk about his athleticism, but I mean, that is grading on the curve. I mean, it's not, it's nowhere near Josh Allen or Jaden Daniels.
He's athletic with his feet. Mm-hmm. His feet allow him to escape dire situations. Yeah. But if you just put him out there on a sprint, he's got to get rid of the football.
You can't really RPO him,
right?
You can't do that. But I say all that to say, and I still say, you could do a lot. You could do a lot worse than Brock Purdy as your quarterback. I think you can. Now, you're going to have. I don't think you can just. He's not Mahomes, and that's no slight. You're not going to just be able to throw MVS and Kadarius Toney and or out there, and and then George or whoever comes after George. I was putting George in the old folks' home last year, and
George looked great again today.
He looked great tonight. So you're not going to be able to have just one guy like a BA and then a bunch of dudes out there with him and expect him to get you, to the Super Bowls. But they've done a good job of, Garindo is I think he is more than a backup. I'm convinced now that he can be a player.
The thing that I would worry about him a little bit is he seems like he's really good at running in a straight line. And when he has to move outside of that, it's not, he's not as nifty as he is running in a straight line. So for this offense, maybe not, he's not going to find his way, but there are other teams that I think could totally utilize him. But as a backup, he's
Yeah.
He's a great.
And
He's a
then,
great.
he might fall into that category. I don't know what it is about those fast guys like Mostert and Eli, and they just, it's hard for them to stay healthy. They're like
Yeah.
Ferraris,
Yeah.
they are always in the shop for something. I don't know, something about that fast twitch
I guess if I
that,
had them big old hamstrings too, it'd be
yeah, I
probably
mean, it
easier
just
to pull them.
tweaks to pull them, and and then it's just, but yeah, he's they got him on a cheap deal, so he should be here around here for a while. If we just stay, I mean, we said that about Eli too, but just couldn't never he could never really put it together. And now, I mean, JP, I don't know if that had what that has to do with the workload that he was carrying, because they were, they were using him like Ricky Williams at times. They were just giving him the ball for 20 and 25 carries. Just with his style, I don't know that works. But and again, I haven't written off Christian McCaffrey. I think I would expect him, until I'm told otherwise, that for him to come back, because when he was back out there, he looked good. But I guess he is getting up in age, and
Yeah.
Achilles is not, they aren't anything to play with. But yeah.
So my friend Melanie, she's in the chat, and she's a Seattle Seahawks fan, but also currently lives in Detroit. And so it made me think, we've seen the Packers both this year and last year. We've seen the Vikings both this year and last year. We've seen the Lions both this year and last year. And those are three really good football teams that may possibly be in the mix in the NFC. Who do you think is the best team in the NFC right now? We didn't play
Well,
the Eagles this year.
if they were healthy, I would say the Lions, but they're not. So I still don't trust Nick Sirianni. I think that he is a boob. But they have everything else. Fangio has that defense playing really well. Saquon is a monster. It's just like Bill Simmons says. I think he has convinced me that Jalen Hurts, at every stop, his passing ability has been the governor on just about every team he's been on, from college to now. And I think that, as good as Saquon is, it's going to come down to, can Jalen Hurts pass them to a championship? And the jury is out. I mean, he has all the ability to do so, but he had all the ability at Alabama. Tua took his job. He had all the ability at Oklahoma, just couldn't get him over the hump. With the Eagles, he was right there at the Super. He was on the way to being the Super Bowl MVP, until he wasn't, until he, gacked it away. So I think I would say the Eagles. I I think I would say, because I don't trust Sam. I still don't trust Sam Darnold. I still don't.
I think now you're 100% right about the Lions. If the Niners were able to go up and down the field on these guys, other teams will as well. But when I look at the pressure that they put on the other team's defense, like the way that they run their offense, how in sync Goff is with everything that they do, they're going to get David Montgomery back. So they're going to have two guys that they could turn to at the drop of a hat to run the football. Amon St. Brown, we saw him. My guy, Jamison Williams, who won me a fantasy football championship today, that I thought I was going to have no chance at, and takes an end around, and then they do a hook and ladder, and he scores twice in the first quarter. I was like, oh, I think I might win this thing. I think if out of all of the personnel groupings in the playoffs right now in the NFC, I would take the Detroit Lions offense number one out of all of the groupings. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily the best team, but if I'm relying on them to score and to have play a tight game, I think I would. I think the whomever comes out of the NFC, I think it's going to be out of the North. I just sense that it's almost like an iron sharpens iron thing with all those guys having to face each other. The Eagles have snuck up on some people. I don't think people realize that they were as good, and Saquon Barkley just changes their offense to a crazy degree as well. But yeah,
I think it's going to come down to the defenses, though. To your point, their offense is good, but those two teams up there, like next week, is going to be a Donnybrook because Brian Flores can heat you up, and we've seen that. They were able to win that 5-sack game that they had a few weeks ago, but you can get to them. Their offensive line is really great versus the run, but you can get to Goff. So in Brian Flores, that's what they do. And then the same thing with Philly and Fangio. So I am looking forward to. So then I think you're right. What it's going to come down to in the NFC is I think it's going to be, can you slow down? Because I don't think you're going to stop the Lions, but can you slow them down enough that your offense is able to outscore them versus their defense? Because that's very possible. That these games are shootouts, which is going to be epic. It's going to be super fun to watch games that aren't like, I love defense too, but I'd much rather have a 42-41 playoff game than a 6-3 playoff game. So, and I think that's what we're in store for with those North teams. And then when you throw the Eagles into the mix, again, I just don't know. Again, that goes to my point. I don't know that Jalen Hurts can keep up with Darnold and, well, really, when I say Darnold, I mean Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And this Lions offense, which is just, it's a juggernaut.
Couple of things. I do love the scoring margin stat. Detroit leads all of the NFL in scoring margin. They, on average, their scoring margin is 12.5 points a game. Buffalo is second at 10.3. The Eagles are at 9.6. Baltimore, then Green Bay, then Minnesota. So you got to get all the way down to 6 for Minnesota, and Kansas City's 8th. The thing that's really interesting about Detroit is their style of football travels. They are just as good inside of the dome as they are outside of the dome. So I think that's going to bode well for them. The one thing, though, because they replayed they replayed some of that stuff from last year's NFC Championship game. The 4th down calls that Dan Campbell, his excuse is like, if I can't sleep at night, then maybe it's a bad one. I'm like, I don't know if I would be using that as my indicator on whether or not I should keep going for these 4th downs. Tonight worked fantastically well. In the playoffs, didn't work fantastically well against the Niners. So there is that, as well as, his play call, or their ability to just go for it on 4th downs, YOLO style. That's something that you can't really measure, I guess, in what we're trying to do. But I think the NFC is going to be wild. I think it's going to be so much fun as we get to the playoffs. AFC, AFC is fine. I think it's when you have Kansas City just constantly winning. It's just all about who can take out Kansas City. And I don't know if anybody's going to be able to take them out. You would think Buffalo.
I don't know. Everybody's been talking about Kansas City and how they're just squeaking by, but I don't think many people are watching what's happened. They've got Garendo back. They've got Hollywood Brown back, replacing Juju. Xavier Worthy has elevated his game. I remember last Christmas Day, they lost to the Raiders, and everybody was talking about how, oh no, the sky is falling. And then they got into the tournament, and Patrick Mahomes is Jordan as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not betting. I'm
Yeah,
never betting against him
you can't bet
until
against
you put the stake in his heart and they are dead. They are the team.
You know who I'm rooting for though?
Who is that?
Chargers.
Hey man,
Harbaugh
is. I mean, he is the turnaround master at this point. It's crazy how he has done that just at every stop. At every stop, he is. So I can't speak about those other places because I don't watch them as close as I watch the Niners. And it was basically a belief thing here is that I was so impressed with what he did with Alex Smith by just putting his arm around and just saying he's my guy, which he had never had at any point here, from Nolan on. Everybody, it was like he was like a punching bag here in terms of what he couldn't do and what he didn't do and how disappointing he was and how big a bust he was and this, that, and the third. Jim Harbaugh killed all of that, and it took until he got to the point where he saw that there was a limitation on what Alex could give you. But yeah, he seems to do that. He did that there because they were a bunch of names down there with the Chargers, and they're playing, really good football now. So yeah, good for him. I really like Jim. I like Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, he's probably not the easiest dude to hang with.
I would imagine.
But like you said, the ability that he has to get his players to believe in themselves and to believe in the team and to believe in the toughness and what it takes to win a football game. You would want him, he might be like the weirdo CEO, but you kind of would want him, at least at the table helping you make decisions,
and those, I have, and again, you have 65 men or more in college. I'm sure there are stories, but you don't publicly hear anybody. The players love him, it all the way down, it was kind of rocky there at the beginning, but he even, he was like the lone voice standing up for Cap.
Yeah.
It's just those guys seem to appreciate what he brings to a team. Even though, all of us seem to think he's like a weirdo, but yeah, it works. It really does work. I mean, the proof is in the pudding.
All right. We didn't have too much analysis for this game, but it's week 17. The Niners are out of the playoff race. The Lions they did not need to win this game. They could have lost this game, and next week it's still winner take the number 1 seed against Minnesota. So kind of funky the way that it worked out. But we do have a player of the game to get to here.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
This year, it has not. We've had a lot of runaways, but this one was tough for me. I had two players. I went ahead and went with Pretty Ricky because I couldn't give it to Nick because they gave up 40 points. So that it was kind of by not to say that his numbers didn't warrant it. They absolutely did. But Nick was incredible today. The 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, like 4 tackles for loss. It was like an insane stat line. But like I say, it was 8 total tackles, 5 solo, 2 sacks, 4 tackle for losses, 4 quarterback hits. That's insane. But Pretty Ricky was phenomenal too. And, it was good to see him have a breakout performance in what has been a rocky rookie season. I mean, a lot of it to no fault of his own. He was injured early in training camp and then he got shot. And then, it was like we said last week, was pretty rocky with some real, just bonehead lining up issues. So it was good to see him come out and have a game. So I went with Pretty Ricky. Who would you have picked?
I would have leaned Pretty Ricky as well. Before that second Purdy interception, if that had actually been a touchdown drive instead of a pick, I think you could have gone Brock.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
it's so funny. You look at these stats, you know, everyone lives and dies by QBR or quarterback rating. Do you know Brock's QBR was higher than Jared Goff's QBR, even with the 2 interceptions?
See, and that, you know, I know passer rating is a shit stat. I get that. But my problem
Jared Goff's
with,
passer rating was a little bit higher than Brock's, but yeah, the QBR surprised me. It just
but the thing about the QBR is I've always had a problem with the QBR because it's a black box stat. We don't know what goes into the QBR, and we don't know if ESPN, because I just don't trust ESPN stats and information because they are in the entertainment business. They are in the statistical accuracy business, and you can see times when that QBR is used as a talking point in those daytime shows. Well, his QBR is higher than this one, so who's better, Jared Goff or da-da-da? And so I have to filter any information that ESPN gives me through the lens that they are first and foremost an entertainment property.
I mean, entertainment is in the name.
Right. So the numbers that they give us, especially when they're making up the numbers, it would not shock me if they are generated in the service of entertainment. So just keep that in mind. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy theory, but I think that should be borne in mind that they are ultimately an entertainment property, and anything that they generate is basically either generated as fodder for their daytime programming or for clicks and, likes, clicks, and content, driving traffic. So I'm of a mind at this point, just about anybody in the media, I look at sideways because I just believe that all of it is about driving traffic and making content and, getting views, clicks, and likes. Even guys definitely guys like Lombardi, but like even Mayoko and those guys, I mean, they work for websites too. So I don't know.
Just to dig into your point about Nick a little bit more. So he was literally the only player on their defensive line to make any sort of difference in this game. He was the only player on the defensive line to get more than 2 tackles. He was obviously there were only 2 sacks. They had 7 tackles for losses. Nick had 4 of them. They had 4 QB hits. Nick had all 4 of them. So when you're talking about a one-man show on the defensive line, like that is literally a one-man show. He is out there, everybody's playing hard. Everyone's, in their spots and trying to do the thing that they're supposed to do. But when you're talking about the guy who actually makes the plays, he's the only guy on the defensive line that you really have to pay attention to. And I'm sure when these teams are putting together their game plans offensively, they're like, look, this guy's gonna be in the mix every once and again, but we're not scared of anybody else.
Mm-mm. Nick and the depth pieces. That's what it is. I mean, it really is, and that I don't know. You could flip a coin, either the offense or defensive line. I don't know which one where you say they should start, but those have to be addressed in a meaningful fashion because we did not do it this offseason. We didn't really do anything on the offensive line. I guess Pooney, but aside from that, which again, I don't know, that is something that really needs to be addressed. If they trot Colton McKivitz back out there again, And I think I would put Jake Brendel in that same boat. That I've seen enough of both of them. And again, Aaron Banks this is like his arrow was trending down because his rookie season was good. Last year, not so good. This season, even worse. So could he have a bounce back? I mean, if the trend is your friend, you'd have to see it to believe it. So there's a lot of work to be done. And John Lynch is going to have his hands full with Brock's contract, what he's going to do with kicker, what he's going to do on the offensive line, what he's going to do on the defensive line, what he's going to do with Dre, what he's going to do with Hufunga. There are a lot of questions going into this offseason.
He probably was not happy with his much camera time as he had tonight.
Probably not. Probably not.
They were spying him for any sort of reaction to things that were happening on the field.
But you know what? That's good for us. So it's going to be a action-packed offseason. So we'll have stuff to talk about if we win when we choose to.
And the way that I watch the playoffs, I won't sit there and watch every game. I'll kind of keep an eye on most of the games. Mm-hmm. But the way I watch the playoffs is I look at the teams and go, okay, this is what this is the level that we have to get to. How do we stop that guy? Who do we need to stop that guy? And it's going to be tough because there's so much talent in the NFC right now that it's almost like the 49ers got old overnight. Now, we know a lot of it is just the injuries that happened, but they are an older team. So that is also going to be part of the calculus for them is how do you keep the high level of talent and slightly get younger because you've run your high level talent into the ground just by being good. And
that's what it is that, we're, when you do like the average age, we're not that far off from the league average, but it's what you just said. It's our top players are aging, and I'm not going to say aging out because again, I just keep looking at Kittle, but Debo's got a lot of tread on his tires. Obviously Christian, George, I mean, he can't do this forever. Juice. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. BA is not old, but he's coming off an MCL and ACL. So, I don't know exactly how much we can expect from him next season. It's usually 2 years after where you get all the way back. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how we balance staying competitive with our vets and then getting younger everywhere else. And how, again, we talked about it with the Warriors as an example. That 2 timeline thing is tough. It's tough to pull off. So it's going to be interesting to see what Lynch does because, like you say, when you look around at these other teams, a team like Green Bay, who is, way back in the North, they are super young.
Yep.
All over the place. Minnesota's young. Detroit has a good balance and mix of older, but I mean, their best players are like, I would say, in their prime as opposed to old. And then you got guys like Gibbs, who is a youngster.
He's a puppy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's so like you say, when you're looking out at the NFC, it's troubling. I mean, I think we can get right back in the mix.
I mean, you look at what Philadelphia did, right? Mm-hmm. You go, Philadelphia had the same issue. They're constantly competing. They're playing really deep into the season. They had an off year. They used that off year to kind of get back into the swing of things. And you kind of look at them. And I think you would take our coaching staff over their coaching staff. And, I think talent-wise, both teams are really good. So that is the model. And you try and get back in there because they did such a great job of going, okay, yeah, we were in the Super Bowl. Then we had the off year, and now we're back because there's a high expectation there, and I think it should be the same with the 49ers.
Mhm.
They should, and fans should really believe that the Niners should be in the mix next year.
Well, the
Now,
first thing
next year and the year after and the year after
Mhm.
that, you have to sort of see how their team is built. You could do the Rams thing where you give everything to win that title, and you kind of set yourself up for 3 years of probably not being great, and then you have to recoup after that. So,
or you do what Philadelphia did, and you crush the draft 2 years ago, and then you start to reap the benefits, moving forward. And so that I think that's what we started. We need to crush this draft. We
yes.
need to get some real, not just replacement level players. We need to get 2 or 3 studs. And at this point, I don't even think it matters where they are that you get Pro Bowl, fringe all pro caliber players. We could use them all over the place, but that's where we need to start. We need to crush this draft and then go from there.
Niners are currently 11 in the draft order. And they play Arizona next week. Arizona has just fallen off of a cliff, similarly to the 49ers. And the Saints are ahead of us. I don't know if we both finish with the same record, who would actually
What the
get there,
tiebreakers are and stuff.
But
yeah.
At probably 11th at worst. You're talking
12, 13, maybe
12, 13, 14, I think. So yeah, they will have a quality pick in the first round, and then you're trying to like you said, you're trying to hit because they cannot afford they can't afford to miss on drafting players who they need to plug into big positions. Like you got to hit
those
on
guys
those.
need to we need 2 or 3 starters out of this draft. I don't think that's I don't think that I'm saying anything that doesn't make sense. They need guys who can plug and play and be contributors this year.
Yep.
And preferably guys at the top of the draft. Again, and it's great to hit on 5th and 6th round players, but those guys at the top of the draft, they're up there for a reason because they have the talent to be more than just replacement level players. They have the talent to be difference makers, and that's what we need. We need some difference makers.
Yep.
So
yeah. All right. Well, we'll be back for the last post-game live stream of the season next week after
Sunday afternoon.
After the game against Arizona. It's a 1:25 game, so we'll be up a little bit after that game is over. And we'll take a break. We'll sort of figure out what we want to do for the playoffs. Obviously, if there's any Niners news, that will take priority, and we will try and have discussions about that. But yeah, so we'll figure we'll start playing, we'll play it by ear, but we'll at least be back next week after 49ers Cardinals. And then Brad and I are back tomorrow morning on the New Year's Eve, Thompson to Clark, last show of the year for BSPN. So, all right, Rod, have a great New Year's. I'll see you in what, 6 days?
6 days.
All right. For Rod, I am Double G. Thank you to those in the chat. Thank you to those who were listening to us.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year to everybody. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.